The only people who don't like control are those who don't know how to use it or who have misused it in the past. Hey, champions. Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about best-selling books by best-selling authors. And today, as we jump into the last episode of Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone and the principles that we talk about, I am joined today by Mr. John Kovac Jr., the global mastermind leader. We're going to talk today about control and how being a control freak isn't necessarily a bad thing. So let's jump right into it. I remember the first time this principle came up. It was when I was first in my self-development, personal growth journey. And this was one of the first books that I jumped to. And it was really interesting because when Grant talked about it, he was like, yeah, being a control freak isn't bad. I had to sit back and be like, I don't know if I agree with you. Because control freaks are kind of freaks. Like they're the ones who micromanage. They're the ones who want control and just want everything to work exactly the way that they want. But Grant also takes that in a different way, where he puts it as if something bad were happening, would you want someone to have leadership over the situation, or do you want to have someone to have control over the situation? Like if you're driving a car and the tail starts to fishtail, do you want someone who is able to control the car and get back in the right situation? Or are you wanting someone who can be a leader in that situation and lead people to not to death, or however you want to say it? So like in that context of what he talked about, it was very interesting because everyone wants control over the things that happen in their life. They want things to work and they want things to work well. And as Grant talks about it, he talks about coming at it from the point of someone needs to be in control. It doesn't have to be me, but someone needs to be in control. And if someone's not in control, then I'm going to jump in and do it. So there's so many things, John, that we can talk about being in control. But initially, what are the thoughts that come to your mind?
Yeah, well, going back to the needing to be a control freak, everything is perception. Like we can decide that something is negative or we can decide something is positive. We can do this for the most extremes, like swear words, or we can do you can choose to believe. Now, there is a societal belief system and a profanity-based explanation to a lot of stuff. But still, if you think about it, everything is perspective. If you are okay with certain perspectives and you're accepting and willing and open to certain perspectives, then, you can change your mindset on these things. And now we have a societal belief that a control freak is someone who's annoying. They're micromanagers. They're in everyone's business, and no one wants to have you or anybody in their business. But at the same time, if you take that back and you kind of step back and say, well, having control of everything means you have control of everything that you have control of. And I know in a lot of concepts when it comes to success is that you need to allow things to work the way you plan them out. And so I get behind the Mother Nature side of control, where some people say, you know what, my hands are clean, it's out of my control. Well, sometimes they say that, but they don't actually mean it, because there are things that we can control. And we can't give uncontrolled things that could be controlled up to mother nature or the universe or energy or whatever, or to luck. We can't give those up just yet. And some people, actually most people, give it up too soon. They give it up too early. And that's something I wanted to share with this, because a lot of times when we do leave it up to trust, faith, or just everything is under someone else's control, uh oftentimes we give up the right to control because we've done it too soon. We still have angles. We still have the ability to give control. Now, my other angle on this is, uh when I first read this, Willie, I I know a couple control freaks. And and as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, duh, control freaks would try to put a positive spin on this so that they have control over the narrative. Duh. Like I saw that and I was like, well, okay. Uh, I've read a lot of Grant's books. I know his personality. I watched him on the Undercover Billionaire in the TV show. I know his personality, and yes, he is very controlling, but he's not controlling in a, let's call it a toxic sense. He's just very in charge of what happens. And I don't want to spoil the TV show, but if anyone goes and watches that, it's on HBO Max. You guys can watch it there. It's on Discovery Channel, I think, as well. But the Undercover Billionaire is a concept where they send people into a random city, and all they give them is $100 cash and a vehicle to drive around in. And they are supposed to figure out how to make $1 million business in 90 days, and with nothing, just left with nothing. And sometimes the $100 isn't even enough. They go broke before they can even get a hotel room. And so it's just interesting. It's fascinating. And so I've seen him and I get his personality, but my initial reaction was, well, duh, yeah, the control freaks would want to control the situation and the narrative of what controlling is. But no, it's all about perception and perception and your perspective. And I love that, Willie, because we have the ability, and here's the plot twist. We have the ability to control our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And if that's the case, then we have the ability to say, you know what, control freaks, they're actually a good thing. They're actually a good thing because they have a sense of what they want. And isn't that what we teach? Is to have clarity about what you want and what you need. And as a result of that, you create wealth and success and so many other opportunities for yourself. So I love the principle. And I think it's going to be a great, well, it's already a great discussion, but I think it's going to be a great concept to dive deeper into.
Yeah, like you said, we talk about this all the time, but we don't use like control or freak. We use taking your power back.
Yeah.
The choices that we make, like it's under our jurisdiction. It's our power to make the choices with our thoughts, our choices to be able to make with our life. If we have our own business, the business isn't going to grow unless we take control of it at first, right? Other people can come in and help after that, but that's after you've been able to manage that the power that you have to be able to create it. Every year I go to this diabetes camp to help with teenagers with type 1 diabetes, and awesomely it's going to happen next month. But while I'm there, it's just like a regular camp type thing where each of us have cabins. There's like 6 to 8 teenagers there, and then like 3 to 4 leaders. And out of those 3 to 4 leaders, there's one, or counselors, there's one called the cabin leader. And the cabin leader is the one who is just in charge and overseeing everything. So that when it comes to the decisions needing to be made for the cabin, that he's the one that does it. And I find it very interesting as we talk about this. In the moments when decisions need to be made, they always turn to the person who they think has the control. And interesting enough, I had this experience last year where I was in a cabin where I usually am the cabin leader, or at least the last several years. In this cabin, they put me in there to help train someone else being the cabin leader. And they were doing a great job. While we're in there, though, everyone kept turning to me for the answer. And I'm like, no, go to this guy. Like he's the cabin leader. And I like kept like deflecting it back to them. But I found it so interesting that usually the one who knows the most, or usually the one who has the experience with it, is the one that people turn to. And isn't that the person who has the most control over it? It's interesting that titles don't necessarily matter when it comes to business, camps, relationships. Like titles don't necessarily matter. It comes down to the power, the respect, and the control. I find it very interesting.
Yeah, I want to jump in there and add to that because there's a reason why there's a business in marketing. Marketing is a multi-trillion dollar industry because it's all about turning an average Joe or Jane into a thought leader, right? And the reason why is you might have a lot of experience, you might have a lot of knowledge. We're not cutting you at that, but it's people who do have the experience that stand out as authority figures, right? And even if you are someone who knows more, if you're unable to present that, you still miss out on followership, on those who trust you, right? Because being a control freak isn't just about the internal side of things, it's being an existential leader. And I love that you brought this up because it goes into a different realm of interesting qualifications. Controlling doesn't have to be a negative thing. Controlling can be something that has access to, and people know that you are the controller, right? The master controller of information, of decision making, of solutions. And that's the ultimate thing. So if this were a marketing opportunity, you win, because even though there's somebody else that's either a hierarchy above you, or they are the cabin leader, which is the chain of command, it doesn't matter, because as a participant and a leader, people trust and follow you faster than they would the actual other person. So that's very fascinating. And I think that's important to know, that everyone listening, whether you have a business or you don't, if you read enough books, if you practice enough in your field, if you watch enough videos, you can speak eloquently enough to become a controlling factor in the realm of thought leadership. And that's something that will give you more leverage, more access, and more solutions. And that's just, don't we want solutions? I mean, some of the biggest businesses in the world were built based off of solutions, and they've solved some pretty important decisions and some solutions. So there you go. I think that a lot of this has a lot to do with who people choose to trust, and how they give that control in the right areas. That was a great example, Willie.
Yeah, thanks. And you're spot on. It's like, as a society, we have made control freak sound bad, but
Right.
really it's like, I was typing some of the synonyms this morning, just looking at it. Like, one's jurisdiction, another is power. You have authority, command, leadership, mastery, rule, benchmark, standard. Like, there are so many different words that go into what control actually is, that I think Grant played us well in the chapter heading of when he's just like, be a control freak, because everyone's just like, what the heck are you talking about? Who wants to be a control freak? Who wants to be the one that everyone thinks of as just like, you gotta stay away from that person, they just want to micromanage you? But when it comes down to it, I love Grant's quote that the only people who don't like control are those who don't have control,
Yeah.
or who misuse it in the past. And I think that's very true. People who don't have control, they're the one making the excuses. They're the ones that are using their reasons of why they can't attain what they want, because they give it to other people.
Yeah.
They don't know. They just aren't willing to take the action, and making excuses is so much more easier. And then misusing it in the past, I know many people, one being myself, who has misused control in the past of titles, of whatnot, saying, I am the boss, you have to do what I said. That just tasted dirty coming out of my mouth.
I got
Right?
chills. That was weird.
Yeah, never want to say that again. But misusing it in the past, like, you get a bad taste for that control, and if you don't know how to control, that's not called control.
Yeah, by the time you get to this 13th or whatever chapter it is, by the time you get to this chapter, um, you understand Grant Cardone's personality, and you understand his sort of mentality. So it makes sense when you read the book when he talks about it. But if you just flip open the book and look at the contents pages and read "Be a Control Freak," you're gonna freak out. No pun intended. And then you're also gonna wonder, like, should I be reading this book? Right? From an outsider's perspective, it's gonna look a little weird. But plot twist, I want to throw something at you, and Willie just brought it up. It's those who are not in control. Those people are technically, if you think about it, and this is no offense to the world, but there's a reason why there's only a small percentage of people who are successful, and why there is such a bad connotation towards the rich. And people are always debating whether we should tax the rich and feed the poor, right? This whole idea. And it's not about that. It's just that they have honed in on their skill sets. They have become controlling, and they've been able to find ways to keep systems and operations working so that money doesn't fly out the window, and that they can maintain a tight ship. When you understand organizations and leadership, you understand what is necessary to go into a successful business. And so I bring this up because when it comes to controlling and thought leadership and so forth, there are people who have misused it in the past. And yes, they're still rich, and some of them are in jail. It's just there's such a dichotomy to this. But don't get confused, because the misuse of control can lead to mistrust, and there's nothing worse than mistrust. It's so hard to gain trust back from people once you've lost it. That is one of the hardest games you have to play. And you know what? You have to play it, because if you don't, then you start from fresh, and you will maintain a reputation, and that reputation will stay with you forever. You can't destroy that. You can't get away from that unless you completely uproot and move to a different country or whatever it might take. But at the same time, there's this negative term called the puppet master, right? Or the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, right? And some of the best controllers are those you don't even see. But then again, there are conspiracy theorists who figure it out, because not everyone is asleep at the wheel. Everyone has a brain, has the ability to wake up and smell the roses and say, wait a minute, life is not as it was, and life is not as it seems. Something is going wrong here. And so some people can see that controlling from behind the curtain can also be a negative. There's so much that are, I hate to say it, Willie, and I don't want to get political on this show, but I hate to say that, there are so many things that our governments do, that organizations do, that big box retail organizations are doing, that none of the employees know about. But at the same time, sometimes it's for protection, sometimes it's for ego, sometimes it's for their legalities, but we don't always know. But I just want to put this out there that, again, if you can flip the switch on Control Freak and see it as a positive, you can also flip the switch and see, master controllers, or those behind the those behind the curtain. I almost said iron curtain. Wow. Those behind the curtain are conducting in a way to keep a system and a steamroller rolling, right? And I think that's important for people to recognize. You can still flip it on its head. It's not all evil, okay? But people might feed you that narrative because you need to believe and you need to follow in what realm you need to do to have success. Don't get caught up in the craziness. Don't get caught up in all the other stuff, but just know that trust is the biggest thing. And if you've lost trust with an organization, well, that's a different story. But if we're not talking about that, we're talking about being in the controller seat. My recommendation is what is exactly what Grant proposed, and it's be controlling and be out and up front. Because if you're controlling behind the curtain and you're the master controller, you stir up a lot of question, and it's so much harder to control from behind than it is out in front. And guess what? Now controlling is leadership. Wow, we've come full circle. Controlling is about leading out in front. Don't put people in front of you to go first. You go first. That's what good leaders do. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting plot twist, and you brought it up because, man, there's some interesting things when it comes to, the misuse of trust, and so many experiences and bad examples. But at the same time, there are so many good examples too.
Yeah. And I want to fight one of the things that you brought up, not against you, but against the prince. Yeah, let's go. Let's duke it out. I'll fight on that. The people who lose trust, lose that respect, that they didn't have control. Because there's kind of two sides to it. You have the temporary control that you have, which most bosses, I'm trying to get my fingers right, bosses have. And then there's the more long term, which is what we call leaders. Because a leader can be a boss, but a boss can't be a leader. And the reason for that is part of that control aspect. Is that when they're in that position, are they willing to be the person who does it for the team, or are they just doing it for themselves? Like, it's a very interesting concept. But it's like, instead of control, I'd use the word success. I think of Nicolas Cage. He is in a lot of movies, and he is one of my favorite people to watch. I love National Treasure. I think it's called Ghost Rider, where his like face becomes a skull and like rides a motorcycle with flames coming out. Like, he made millions and millions of dollars, but then he became bankrupt. And you think about it, and it's like, is that success? Like, is he successful, or was that a failure? And you can think about it on the side of what we're talking about, is like, did he have control? Was it more temporary control, or is it lifetime control? Because if you made millions, any of us would love to have millions of dollars to be able to control. And in this instant, Nicolas Cage, nothing against him, love his acting, but he had that millions, he had that control, and then went bankrupt because of it. So it's a very, very interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah. When it comes to that type of control, for everyone to understand and maybe relate to as well, is that you think about this. By now, you probably have a credit card connected to your bank account. And by now, you have automated expenses. It seems like this time of our society and world, everything is connected to either a subscription model or a monthly payment system, aka mortgages, rent, bills. Sometimes people sign up for monthly pay taxes to reduce the cost. Monthly, people are paying things on a monthly basis or a regular recurring basis, right? And if you wake up at the end of the month and say, wow, there's more month than there is money in my account, you might have fallen victim to being out of control. You have no control over what is coming in and what is going out of your bank account. Well, I take that back. You have control of what's coming in, but you may not have control of what's leaving your bank account. And so if you think of it in this terms, in order to get control, you need to have knowledge. You need to have a planner. You need to update that calendar and know exactly what is going in and what's going out. But that may also mean that you can say, you know what? We don't need Netflix. We can turn that off. So now you're in control of what's exiting your bank account. You might say, you know what, this food delivery service, I can make meals myself. I don't need to have a planner send all the ingredients to my doorstep, so it's easier for me. And then all of a sudden you're in control. Now, canceling is not in control, but knowing, having knowledge and understanding and clarity and being able to anticipate things, that is being in control. So controlling isn't just having your finger on the button ready to push it, but control is a factor of understanding, knowledge, and experience. Because once you have that clarity in your life, you don't necessarily have to gain control by shutting everything down and completely rearranging the entire wardrobe, right? Instead, what control is about, it's being able to take what you know and make the best out of it. And I like what you said, Willie, because for me, it is a bit of a plot twist. It is something that I guess people don't see in a regular perspective, but uh, it's important for us to realize that if you're not in control, you might be being controlled. And if you're out of control, let's think about the semantics of these words, right? If you're out of control, mayday, mayday, you're going down, right? If you're in control, then everything is good. If you have no control, then you lack the ability to create a solution or an outcome. And so the semantics of all those mean that control is important. And if you can see it from that light, if you can see it from that lens, it really is something that you have to develop. And so when it comes to your life and business, get back into control. Control that bank account. Control any else in your life. For example, I looked at my calendar yesterday, and then an appointment that had been scheduled on my public calendar had just popped up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am out of control of my calendar because I am not prepared for whatever meeting this is. And I had to reorganize myself. I had to reach out to that individual, and I said, I'm not understanding the context of this meeting. Can you either fill me in within a few seconds, or I'm going to have to reschedule because I don't have a position of higher power, not higher than that person, but higher power in my control to know exactly how to confidently go into these meetings. And I recommend that. I recommend that for entrepreneurs. I hope it's a applicable implementation that people recognize when they listen to this. And I know I've rambled a lot today in this episode, so thank you for bearing with my long-windedness. But I just wanted to share that there are ways to gain control back. And yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I actually don't even think I enhanced what you said, Willie. I kind of went on a different tangent, but I wanted to bring it back somehow, and I just lost it. So I'm out of control.
You're out of control. No, you brought up one of the, like, a crucial thing. Out of control. Like, we haven't talked about that.
Hey Willie, time out for 1 second. Your microphone just like unplugged. It's pretty far away, sounds like. Give it a second and try again. My apologies for interrupting you, my friend.
Nah, you're good. Sound good now?
A little bit better, but still a little distant. Sounds like you're on speakerphone.
Oh. Hello. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Just go ahead and proceed. No worries. It sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. You brought up a really crucial thing of being out of control. Like, that is one of the most crucial points that we really haven't touched on yet. Because the person who's, I find it interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to, like, condense this thought into an awesome quote. And I think it's like, the person out of control calls the ones who's in control freaks, and the people in control call others who are in control that they have standards.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's the ones who don't have it that label it as something bad to brace themselves from the hurt because they aren't taking the power back and they don't have it in their life. So that came to me, and as we were wrapping up this episode, like Grant Cardone, like John said, his personality, you got to read the whole book in order to, like, understand Grant if you don't know him already. Because if you just jump to this chapter, you can be very misinformed. But he's a very type A personality. He's very take charge. Back when, like, and he did it back in his late 20s when his father passed away, and he just knew that he had to take control of his life. Started doing sales even though he hated it. Started being like the sales king and just continued to grow, building his 10x business into 10x conferences and everything in between. So you always take things with a grain of salt. And I think that as we talk about this, I just say as my final thought, and then I'll turn it over to John, is take perspective, evaluate yourself and where you're at. Because like I said, I've been in moments where I felt I wasn't in control, and other people have been seen as control freaks. But in those other moments where I look at those exact same people, I see standards. And the common denominator between those two is me. And so it's my choice to take responsibility of, do I stay out of control or do I take my control back? Those are my final thoughts. John, I'd love to hear what you have to say as we close.
Oh, man. You opened up a whole other can of worms I could go off of for another 30 minutes, but we'll wrap this up. And I just wanted to say, yeah, I like that. Just a little teaching moment in the world of fighting and organized, whatever it's called, combat. There's something called the sand in the eyes, or AKA the cheap shot, right? When favor or control is out of your hands, you resort to potential moves by using your environment and your surroundings so that you can gain back control, right? And usually a sand in the eyes thing or cheap shots are typically what people resort to. And you brought up something that was so interesting, and we can talk about this in other episodes and more later. But I just wanted to add that seriously, when you fall out of control, don't be the cheap shot. Okay, it's not desperation to get back into control, to have control. There are strategic ways to do so, and you can find that through clarity, knowledge, understanding, just like we covered in the show. But I love that you brought that up, because again, those who lose control, fall out of control, or are completely out of control, it could be because of either misuse of control themselves, or it is something that really that they weren't using the controlled factor to their best abilities. And I know it's a very vague comment, but for our listeners' sake, I just want to say, look, the fastest and most perspective, the best perspective to have is to see things from your control. And, the whole wipe your hands clean thing is only good when it's truthfully not within your control. So I do believe in control, and I do believe in trusting the universe and trusting energy and frequencies of success. And I do believe in Mother Nature, which is out of my control, but I do believe I can do my darndest to make sure that I can bring everything into play so that I am in control. And you know what? It's a constant battle. It's a constant uphill battle and a downhill battle, but you can do it. It's not impossible. So I recommend you grab a copy of this book, Be Obsessed or Be Average, because in this phrase right there, you can be obsessed and you can take control of everything in your life, or you can continue to be the 98 or 97 or 98% of this world. And those people, unfortunately, are not completely in control. In fact, in Outwitting the Devil, he talks about being a drifter. So don't be a drifter. Don't be out of control. Find ways to be obsessed and don't be average. My gold medal standard is always it's always seek gold medal standards and do my best. Never settle for mediocrity. And to me, that's my life mission. Never, ever settle for mediocrity. Do your best in everything you do, and you'll find ways to make it happen. So there you go.
Be obsessed or be average is the synopsis of what we talk about today. Thank you, champions, for listening to another episode of Champion Reads. This ends this book on Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. And we'll go into the next book in our next episode. If you found inspiration, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. And until next time, continue to light up the world, continue to be the champion of your life, and always remember that you are in control. It is just time to set a new standard and to follow those standards through. We'll see you next time, champions.